Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Fictional Minds. Today we're going to talk about Mr. Gold, also known as Rumpelstiltskin. Okay, so Rumpelstiltskin is also known as the Dark One. He became the Dark One shortly after injuring himself in the Ogre Wars so he could be with his family. Um, I honestly I did not like Rumple for a long time. I think it was my third watch of the series where I kind of grew a soft spot for him. If we start from, when he was a baby, actually, his mom became just hyper obsessed with trying to save her child, and it turned her into the the black fairy, just like the darkest evil that the land has ever, that land ever saw. And that was his mom. And so she abandoned him as a child and left him with his dad, who was known as like, the cheap state. He was a scammer. He was also, you know, a gambler, a really bad gambler. And his dad also ends up abandoning him. Rumple kind of grows and he's a spinner. He finds Mila, gets married, they have a son, and he seems very humble. He loves his family. He's very soft-spoken. Nothing like we see with him being the dark one. It's a complete contrast. Like the difference is crazy. But we see also he injures himself in the Ogre's War just so he could stay with his family because Asir told him that his actions on the battlefield will lead him to losing his son. Now, or his son will lose his father. At the time, he thought that that meant he would die in the Ogre Wars and that his son would not be able to grow to have a father as he got older. However, we found out later that it meant that you are going to injure yourself, turn into the Dark One, and then your son loses his dad, which was, you know, crazy. But we start to see kind of Rumple is a coward. He's very cowardly. When his son just wanted him and he wanted, them to leave together, he was too afraid to let go of the magic. I mean, he wanted it to protect himself, which is understandable. He was ridiculed, embarrassed. I mean, his wife abandoned him, abandoned again by his wife, and just the town kind of was just very hard on him. Now, when he became the Dark One, I mean, he took it up several notches. It was very he became a very dark person. But once he lost his son, he was still evil and dark. However, it's not like he was going out to try to get revenge on anyone. He really just was trying to get to his son, but he was willing to do anything and everything to get to him. Okay, so I think Rumple's attachment style is pretty disorganized. He wants intimacy, but he's afraid to be vulnerable with anyone. And we see that with Bay when he wanted his son, however, he could not let go of the dagger. You know, but we see, I mean, the curse was 28 years, and it's no telling how long he spent just trying to get to his son. I mean, he was very dedicated to that. He made a lot of destructive decisions to avoid abandonment. I mean, even with Belle, we go back. Did he really need someone to clean his tower? No, I think he wanted Belle in his home with him because he was alone. It made no sense why he would need, I mean, he's magic. He could have the space spotless. So it's very clear that he brought Belle in because he still couldn't be vulnerable. So he brought her in for close proximity, but he didn't have to be vulnerable and let her in by holding her as a hostage. Um, with and also with Belle, he tries to open up, but then he just constantly sabotaged their relationship. The lying and hiding, choosing power, and he just couldn't let it go, very anxious attachment. He always feared that she would abandon him. And even when he kind of gave it up seriously, she was just like, I can't do this, Rumpel. And also, I secretly think Belle loved the evilness in him. That's just my little humbled opinion, but I think she liked the darkness, and trying to, I guess, change him. Some women's like, I can change him. That's what Belle was going through. And she did change him. It took some time, but she did it. So I think his core wound or fear is that he believes that he is weak and unworthy and will be abandoned no matter what. People will leave him. And I believe that's why he held on so much to his power, because the power could be there for him, it wouldn't leave him. It can't leave him like people can. So I think that was a big reason on why he just couldn't let the power go. He constantly relied on his power and control to be able to manipulate and make deals. I mean, that was his bread and butter, like making a deal and finding a loophole in his deals. And we also, I mean, I guess they added this in later on when we saw uh, Emma become the Dark One. And they told the other Dark One told her that all magic comes with the price, and the deals that Rumple were making, all Dark Ones make pretty much. Um, but I believe that this is also part of Rumple's personality, because when he is Mr. Gold, he still writes, he still makes these deals. We saw that all through season one. Another thing is Regina should have questioned why would a extremely powerful sorceress want to go to a land without magic and forget his memories. You know, she should have kind of thought that through. I guess she was just she had tunnel vision, so focused on getting her revenge, she didn't even see the writing on the walls with that one. Um, but we also see that Rumple is emotionally detached. He uses sarcasm and fake confidence, which again, I mean, his childhood was so rough. It's kind of understandable why he lived the life that he lived, and his desperation to get back to his son. I don't know many people that would go through all of that, but he really did. He was dedicated, very dedicated. And I think some of the things that shaped him was, humiliation. I mean, he stayed getting humiliated before he was the Dark One. He was known as the village coward. Not only that, people knew his dad, and he was also looked down upon. He didn't come from great people, I guess, in a way. And then his dad turns into Peter Pan, which is also equally as evil as the dark fairy. And the craziest part about all of this is that Rumple was supposed to be like some sort of savior until his mom cut his those fate ties. Um, so then I guess that gave him the opening to become the Dark One and being evil. Um, some of his patterns, he constantly chose power over love. He would sabotage his own relationships. And even when Belle showed him that she was all in over and over again, he just constantly, I don't know, it's like he didn't believe her. He constantly sabotaged that. Um, I know a big reason for that could be because he thought she may leave anyway. I think he wanted it, but he was still afraid because he's had that happen before where he was just in love and then they left. Um, and I honestly, he constantly went through regression and growth. He would choose the right thing, but then he would just go back to his instincts would kick in and he would go back. But I think in season 7, which I have already said, is my favorite season, and I really, really love the relationship between him and Captain Nook, because it showed, even though he was a little mean to him, it just kind of showed like his caring side. We didn't see Belle. He got to live his whole lifetime with Belle, and then he kind of was on the other side of it, just ready for it to be over with. And he gave that kindness to Hook, even though Hook spent a good portion of his life chasing after the Dark One, trying to kill him for what he did to his Mila. And then we got to see them. They are the they've known each other since the beginning of time. If you remember, they were well, the Dark One is immortal, and Captain Hook spent a very long time in Neverland where he didn't get older. So they're a couple hundred years old, and they've known each other for just as long. So I guess in the end they kind of were friends. He kind of danced around it, saying you were my oldest friend. I can't remember which season it was, but when Rumple was in his evil bag again, and he took Captain Hook's heart and was kind of using him. He needed his heart for something, I guess to remove his tether from the weapon, from the dagger. And so he's like, "You're my oldest friend." And it turns out he kind of is. So, some of the things that I think, they leaned into is that beast aspect because he is the beast in Beauty and the Beast. And I think they did a really good job at showing him as a beast. Not even though he was, he did look like a beast in his dark when he was the dark one. However, I think his actions were what the real beast was. And I think they did a good job at kind of recreating that character and showing what the monster is and how the monster came out on the other side because of love. So it ended while him and Belle had to kind of go to the place where the sun never set. However, it really happened after she passed, and he kind of was just mourning her. And then he got pulled into another curse, of course. But um I do like his character, such a dynamic character. I think they show kind of some what I guess his character will look like in real life is definitely PTSD, very paranoid, um, needs to be in control. I think also he had an addiction to power, and I think they did a good job at portraying addiction as well. Kind of especially when Belle was trying to push him across the line with his dagger, and he was so afraid, and he was just crying and saying anything to try to stay because he needed that power back. And we saw that again, how he chose the power. It's like him choosing that drug over and over again until he finally was done. And that happened in season 7. He has a lot of attachment trauma, which again is um of course, because look at how his beginning started when he was a child. But I think this is a very dynamic character. Rumpelstiltskin does have a soft spot in my heart just because of, all the things that he had to go through. But that's all I have today. Thank you guys for listening.